everybody. I'd like to welcome you to this virtual reading of Jill. My name is Lisbeth Redfield. I'm the Literary Arts Manager at Pen and Brush, and this reading was originally supposed to take place on March 24th at our gallery in Manhattan. We were not able to hold it as planned for obvious reasons, but we are thrilled that we can bring all the readers together again today to celebrate Sant Jordi. I'm here to provide a quick introduction to Pen and Brush and to Jill. Pen and Brush is a publicly funded 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to promoting visual and literary art by women and non-binary creators. We were founded in 1894, and today we fulfill our mission by showing contemporary art and by publishing works of literary fiction and poetry. We also host literary events in our gallery, including Jill readings. If there's a silver lining anywhere today, it's that we were originally supposed to be installing in our space this week and thus couldn't do much to celebrate the festival. It's a wonderful, happy surprise that we can now take an active part in celebrating so many talented writers and artists. The Jill series was created in 2019 by Larissa Kyzer. It is a Woman Plus in Translation series intended to highlight the work of women and non-binary translators, or translators of women and non-binary authors at any stage in their career. This is the third reading in the series. Thank you for joining us, and I'm very excited to turn this over to our first reader.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruwa. Thank you so much to Larissa, Lisbeth, and Pen and Brush for organizing this. I'm going to be reading two poems, or translations of two poems, both by Iraqi poets. The first is called al-Sayyab, or Legends. It's written by Badr Shakir al-Sayyab. And the second is written by his contemporary Nazik al-Malaika, and it's called al-Khayt al-Mashdud fi shajarat al-Saru, or the string tied to the cypress tree. I'm going to read a bit of the Arabic for the first one, just so you can see how it sounds. أساطير مثل المدى القاسيات تلاوينها من دم البائسين فكم أومضت في عيون الطغاة بما حملت من غبار السنين يقولون وحي السماء فلو يسمع الأنبياء لما قهقهت ظلمة الهاوية بأسطورة بالية تجر القرون بمركبة من لظى في جنون لظى كالجنون وهذا الغرام اللجوج أيرتد من لمسة باردة على إصبع من خيال الثلوج وأسطورة بائدة وعرافة أطلقت في الرمال بقايا سؤال وعينين تستطلعان الغيوب وتستشرفان الدروب فكان ابتهال وكانت صلاة تعفر وجه الإله وتحثو عليه انطباق الشفاه. This is a love story set in pagan Greece. Legends. Legends from the rattles of time, the woven work of a Babylonian hand. Legends narrated by a darkness from the abyss, sung by two of the deceased. Legends, like deserts overtaken by mirages, split apart the remains of a meteorite. I saw the gleams of their golden sands rise to meet the tip of a shadow of a loaf. I saw myself, the thick curtain hiding you from me so that all the moments I waited were lost. Hopes were despaired of, and the two lovers finished. Legends like sharp knives stained with the blood of the desperate. Oh, how they shone in the eyes of the tyrants with what they carried of the dust of years gone by. They say it is divine revelation. If only the poets could hear, then the darkness of the abyss wouldn't have laughed so outdated a legend out. Dragging the centuries through seas of madness in a ship made of fire, fires like madness. And this obstinate love, is it so easily turned back, put out by a cold touch at the hands of an imagined snow, an extinct legend, an oracle who threw into the sand the remains of a question, two eyes seeking out the unseen, trying to make out exit paths. So a supplication and a prayer buried the god's face in the dirt, and rained down upon him pressings of the lips upon each other. Come. For still the star of the evening melts away the moonlight in the ever-drowning day and hides the tranquility of the road in two colors, between a gleam and a blink, and the warm, fragrant whispers of an air, heavy with the melancholy that accompanies the setting of the sun, remind me of our separation. The sail shrinking away with our greetings, a waving hand, oh, what agony! Come, for the color of the clouds are still sad. They remind me of departure. Departure. Come, come, we'll melt away time and its hours in a long embrace, and we'll dye the sail in the deep pinks of the Judas tree, and we'll forget tomorrow in your sweet smelling and warm embrace like the poet dozing off. Come, for all of space is filled with echoes that whisper wish our meeting, that continue without end. In your eyes there is a long and faraway wait, and something which desires. Darkness. Beside her is a question rattling, and a sad yearning which wants to squeeze the mirage and tear apart the myth of the ancient ones. Oh, agony. 2 wings beyond this curtain to elsewhere, a sail and the whispers of goodbye. The next poem, I'm leaving out the middle for the interest of time, so I'll pause between the beginning and the end, and what happens in the middle is when he goes to visit his beloved's home, and she's the narrator of the poem. When he goes to visit her home, he finds that she's dead, and finds a string tied to a cypress tree that is outside of her home. In the blackness of the dark street and its deafening silence, where there are no colors but the single color of the revealing shadows, where the oleander trees overflow with sadness onto the face of the earth, there is a voice that tells me a story and then fades. It slips vanishing into the shadows, a love story, one you thought was dead, but here it is exploding with life. Tomorrow your longing to see me will squeeze you and bring you to me, and you'll call to me, but you'll grow tired. The memories will push down on you, hard and burdensome. You will go mad, and you will look and not find anything, nothing, not a dream or even a soft word, nothing. The road will call you then, and you'll wake up. The night will see you on the road alone, asking yesterday, now long gone, to return. The unchanging street and oleander will both see you, walking. The color of your eyes, all excitement and happy anticipation. On your face, they'll see love and emotion. Everything from the depths of your depths drawn there, and I myself see you too from my place here, this dark and quiet and faraway place, and I see too that happy dream deep in your eyes calling me defeated. Then you finally see the house. Our house, where we first met, when our love was just a newborn child, his bright red color in our lips and the shivers of his youth in our hands. She died is an utterance that doesn't mean anything. It is the echo of a hollow gong that rises and then fades into nothingness. Its orderly reverberations don't concern you. All you can think about is that strange string. Could she have tied it? And that voice rises again. She died. It's only getting louder, refusing to go away. It fills the night screaming, clapping like thunder. She died. The voice keeps echoing, and the darkness keeps repeating the declaration. The cypress trees repeat it in a deep voice. She died. It's what the storms are saying. She died. The distant stars echo it, and you can almost hear it now deeply embedded in your veins. The voice that says, she died, rings everywhere. The hollow pounding in time's ears, the voice of she died chokes you like a snake. Every letter is a terrified nerve panting in your chest, and you are plagued by visions of a red noose. You have no heart anymore, and you conjure images of claws gnawing at you, and you hear the echoes of a hellish cracking voice, the hollow pounding, she died. She died, and the world is devoid of her. In vain you ask the darkness about her. In vain you listen to her for her footsteps. In vain you search for her as you look up at the moon, and in vain do you dream one day that you'll see her in any place other than the cells of memory she has set behind the stars. And you can't even dream that you'll see her light flashing from a distance. So there you are, unable to move, tired. You're about to break down in the passageway to the house. Your frazzled gaze is pulled there, to a string tied to a cypress tree, bearing in its knots 1,000 secrets. That strange string, that frightening riddle, is all that is left of your fading and bleak love. The night sees you returning. In your hands is the string, and you're shivering, and you're covered in a cold sweat. She died. You're walking, and you're disconsolate and bewildered. You're playing mindlessly with the string, twisting and twirling it around your index finger, and you can see nothing else. This is all that's left of your deep love. This string and that horrible utterance. She died. Every other sound has given way to just that. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Tenzin Dickie. I am a writer and a translator, and I'm reading from the Tibetan, from the writer Pema Bhum's memoir, Remembering Dorji's Hearing, about his teacher during the Cultural Revolution in Tibet. The Cultural Revolution in Tibet is, well, it's a very important period that's essentially been erased from history and memory. So this record, Pema Bhum's record of his experience of the Tibetan experience during the Cultural Revolution it's a very important work, and I hope you'll enjoy hearing from it. So in Tibetan, it sounds like this. Nga tsinju jizo su jorwe tokme tusu pyoba yimin kangmang shiki nga la gyuntu tiwe tiwa shikni. Nye pyo to rangi pyoik rango tumpa jitar shepa ragurwa theyin. Gyunden ki mirik shigina mirik thei rangi geik shingin shigla rangi jitar shepa gyursul ki tiwa ni lo yule deba shigiyin. This chapter is called An Unctuous Recitation. In 1970, when I got into Tik National Teachers College, there were about 60 students in my class. To separate us into two sections, an upper and a lower section, the school tested our Tibetan language and mathematics. I found the math test easy because it only tested addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. But I had trouble with the Tibetan test. There was only one part to the Tibetan test, and that was a dictation of Lin Biao's introduction to the quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong, the Little Red Book. Now, Quotations from Chairman Mao was a book that we carried on our persons at all times, no matter what we were doing. We needed to study the Little Red Book at least once every day, and I could even recite many of the passages from the book word for word. But I'd never read the introduction to it. During the test, as soon as I heard the word introduction, I became totally confused. I still remember writing down introduction. The teacher began, "Comrade Mao Zedong is the greatest Marxist-Leninist of our era," and I tried my best to write down the words as I heard them. The results were posted the next day. I had made it to the upper section. At the time, I could hardly believe that I had made the upper section when I couldn't even spell the word introduction properly. Now, when I think back on this incident, of course it makes sense. All the students who sat that test were around 13 or 14. It was just as we were learning to read some Tibetan that the Cultural Revolution began and put a stop to our education. Most of us who were taking that test could hardly get any words down on paper, let alone spell the words correctly. A few days after this test, we began our classes, but we had no textbooks for any of our classes. All the compositions of the great Tibetan scholars had been classified as poison. Even the Tibetan language textbooks compiled under Chinese government supervision before 1966 could not be used. So, the text that we used for our Tibetan language class was again quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong. After some time, the campaign to study Mao's 3 great essays was launched. These essays were titled "Serve the People," "Yugong Moves the Mountain," and "In Memory of Norman Bethune." So we had to study these essays for a while in our Tibetan language class. As soon as this campaign was over, the campaign to study Chairman Mao's 5 essays on philosophy swept the country. The essays were as follows: on practice, on contradictions, on the correct handling of contradictions among the people, speech at the Chinese Communist Party's National Conference on Propaganda Works, and where do correct ideas come from? The school began using these essays as our textbook for the class. The first essay, on practice, was the text that we had to study, and our teacher was to be Sir Dorje Tsering. It was Sir Doring who taught us Tibetan for the first time. My memories of that first day that he came to teach our class are as clear and vivid as if it were yesterday. When he stepped inside the classroom, we collectively sucked in our breath. So awed and intimidated were we by his fame and his majesty. We all sat up straight in our chairs, stared at his face, and waited breathlessly for his first words to us. So Doring came in, put Chairman Mao's 5 essays in philosophy down on the desk, looked at each of us and said, "It smells of shit in here. Open the windows." Not sure what he meant, some of us looked at each other. Some of us kept staring at him, waiting for him to say more. "Did you all hear me? Open the windows," repeated Sir Doring. The students who sat near the windows opened them. "If you must smoke, go and smoke in the toilets, inhaling the smell of piss and shit as you do so. Cigarette smoke in the classroom stings my nose and mouth, and I can barely read a book in here." Then we understood that he meant the smell of shit to mean the smell of cigarettes. As it were, students weren't allowed to smoke at school. The other teachers, when they found us smoking, punished us by giving us a long lecture. Of course, the teachers had gotten used to giving this lecture, and the students had gotten used to hearing it. Sir Doring's way of scolding the students who smoked was so novel that it confused us at first. Now, Sir Doring called out some names and had these students read out a few lines from On Practice. One or two of them, thinking that a quick reading will impress the teacher, read hastily, tripping over the words and mispronouncing others in their nervousness. If it were another teacher, they would have stopped the student, made the correction, and given a scolding all in one go, but not Sir Doring. He listened to all the students one by one without stopping them, as if they were giving some great reading. Then he asked, "Do you guys know what an amcho is?" Maybe the other students didn't know what an amcho was. They just looked at each other and no one said anything. I knew that an amcho was a monk who went to people's houses to read scripture, but was that the answer Sir Doring was looking for? I wasn't sure, so I kept quiet. No one gave an answer. Sir Doring said, "An amcho is a monk who reads scripture in people's houses." I felt very sorry that I had not given the answer when I had it. Sir Doring continued, "When the amcho reads the scripture at people's houses, it is not necessary for the host to hear and comprehend the words. Often it is not even necessary for the amcho himself to hear and comprehend what he is reading. In fact, the faster an amcho reads, the more skilled he is considered to be." Now we understood what he was saying, which was that we read like amchos. Next, Sir Doring wanted to give us a dictation. He told us to mark the words we didn't understand. After he finished dictating, he wanted us to tell him all the words we didn't know. As he was dictating, he read very slowly. His voice wasn't very loud, but he spoke each word clearly, as if he wanted us to hear that this was the way to read and not the way of the amcho. After Sir Doring finished reading several passages, we gave him some words that we didn't know, like explanation and retinue. Then he said, "These are the only words that you don't know?" Nobody answered him, and the classroom went very quiet. "There are more words that I don't know in this essay than you guys," said Sir Doring. "Who can explain these terms to me?" He listed a bunch of revolutionary terms such as society, economy, class, production, etc. We came across these terms at least once every day, whether in our books or in our lives, but there was not a single one of us who could explain what they meant. We sat there, dumb and silent.
I'm going to be reading some poems by the Galician poet Alba, and I'm going to start by just reading a really quick fragment of an original version and then do some translations. Historia apócrifa das Venus atrapamoscas, ou o campo magnético da necesidade. 1. Carolina do Norte, xunho. Recordo os repentinos cambios de luz e os baños, as americanas que choraban diante dos espellos e usaban vaqueiros máis celestes que os seus iris. Determe diante da única especie que non sabía reproducir en origami e esperar. And now I'm going to read the original, or the translations. An apocryphal history of Venus flytraps, or the magnetic field of needs. 1. North Carolina, June. I remember the sudden changes in light in the bathrooms, the American girls crying in front of mirrors and wearing jeans lighter blue than their irises. Me pausing in front of the only species I didn't know how to reproduce in origami, and waiting. On a sign, please do not poke, prod, stick, or in any way touch the Venus flytraps. Each leaf can open and close only a few times before it dies. There's no need to worry. We can study the garnet of their open lobes and the shoot of their stems, and imagine the tachycardia of insects hypnotized by their ruby, the theory of redundant triggering, the fever. Tricks are really just mouths, I say, the mouths of an enormous blow-up attraction at the local fairs from when I was 12. There's no need to worry. We were there for so long, the teenagers from the bathroom crossed the hall, I remember, briefly projecting a swampland scene, with the reflections from their flamingo-pink hair. There so long watching the net, and the way the fish shone in the net, that the spectacle occurred. Just a rustle of stems and centuries, spider turned petal, a long, drawn-out death. Then the valves close, and it ends. We bend over, and towards the back a guide explains how perfect this hunting system is, names minute trichomes that can tell a raindrop apart from the thorax of a bee, and adds that the poverty of the soils is the reason for their behavior, that insects provide the nitrogen lacking in the ground. Beside me, "Oh, babe," you said, "fragile limestone heart. Do you see now? There's no wickedness here. There's no need to worry." 2. But time is a palindrome, the body of a wetland rush, and once you've grasped that, all that's left is to dissolve language and describe the easy way he embraced, without knowing that such a gesture is an immense sacrifice, and that we only embrace that way a few times before we die. Triptych. Oil on canvas, my grandmother reproduces a scene from Millet. Her right hand oscillates 3 times over, sowing salt crystals in the face of the oncoming storm, as if the sea's currency were enough to save us. The girls watch them dissolve upon contact with the cement patio, and their jewels for a fraction of a second, something to point at as they disappear. The rain keeps the psalms from sticking to the little girls, and the hand that had been a pendulum returns to its hip. Like a marigold, it knows how to withdraw. When you plant a bonsai, you do so away from the center to make space for the divine, much like her, casting out evil from an apex. Oil on wood, my father says that recruitment is an art. He keeps many things to himself. The hour in which the snow turns blue atop Swiss mountains, his daughter's first tooth, the shattering of his sternum. He keeps silent. I would never plant a bonsai. He knows how to withdraw the shadow from the bodies of birds. Acrylic on paper, his daughter repeats, similia similiabus curantur, the law by which an animal or evil spirit will not attack anyone who carries with them a part of that animal or spirit. She repeats it as she traverses the patio. When she was born, they tied stag beetle horns around her wrist. 100 kilometers to the west, the fishermen gather up starfish to fertilize the soil. She doesn't know this. Brazen, she plants herself in the center and gazes upwards to capture the gleam of an erstwhile Milky Way. And the last poem, Ukai, on the practice of cormorant fishing. Erhai Lake, literally ear sea because of its shape, remains beyond our reach. The Nagara River in Gifu Prefecture too. But one thing we share with those sweetwater deposits are cormorants. There, they have ukai, a method of fishing. First movement. A bamboo boat slides calmly along the still water. It moves quite slowly because we're witnessing the spectacle through other people's photographs. Images by professionals and hobbyists, by tourists who crowd in front of the rafts and drink sake. If we were to look at Edo period woodblock prints, we'd see lanterns hanging from the boats. The artists take some license with the flames, such that the beacons end up looking like Viking manes suspended above the water. They light them to attract the fish, to allow this imperial element one last dance. Second movement. Occasionally, as he floats away, the fisherman places a bamboo stalk over his shoulders, St. Michael with his scales. On each end of the stick, a cormorant ready for work. If they ever waver, our eyes can't tell. They flout everything we thought we knew about balance. They erect themselves in representation of justice. Third movement. To stop the birds from swallowing the big fish, their necks are constricted with a hemp tie. Fourth movement. The fisherman wraps the bird's bill in both hands and extracts the catch, a carp, a golden catfish, from the top of its throat. You must be firm and have relatively strong hands for this maneuver, because in the end, subtraction always implies violence, and I suppose that if Ecclesiastes' silver cord binding body and soul were afforded to small animals, it would break, pling, as they were dropped into the basket. The bird lets it happen, and the scene reminds us of a line by Alfred, Lord Tennyson. All things are taken from us. Fifth movement. Summer comes with a lesson on death. We weren't wrong to superimpose the images of St. Michael and the gaunt fisherman. Both administer time, virtue. Both have a place in the final judgment and a mastery of flame. Could even read a fortune and say, "Here is your card, madam. Here are your trouts. Those are pearls that were once their eyes. Look." Paused on the shore, anyone could spot the moment of return from the birds' monumental poses on the rafts. The cormorants stretch out to dry, and their immense wingspan helps to build the night. In the shadows, a pantocrator's tessellated hand approaches the bird's throat, now freed of its snare, and strokes it. Final movement. The rawness is gone from this scene now. There's just water. Water and full baskets. A superimposition of fish scales. The strange shapes of love and servitude. St. Michael adjusting the blindfold over the eyes of justice. A bird eating its fill. Thank you.